The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. In those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, up to the day that Noah entered the ark. They did not know until the flood came and carried them all away. So will it be also at the coming of the Son of Man. 2 men will be out in the field. One will be taken and one will be left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill. One will be taken and one will be left. Therefore, stay awake. You do not know on which day your Lord will come. Be sure of this. If the master of the house had known the hour of night when the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and not let his house be broken into. So too, you also must be prepared, for at an hour you do not expect, the Son of Man will come." The Gospel of the Lord. The news headlines on WMUR this past week were dominated by the sad story of a young woman who went hiking up in the White Mountains this past week and got lost in the snow and the cold. They searched for her for days and sadly finally found her body a few days ago on the slopes of Mount Lafayette. And I don't know if this young lady was prepared or not for her hike. She might have been. Anything can happen up there. But officials certainly took the opportunity to say, hey, if you're hiking in the White Mountains any time of the year, but especially in the winter, you've got to be prepared. Things can be much worse up there than you can imagine. I remember one of the few times I ever hiked in the winter up in the White Mountains. I was hiking up Cannon Mountain in January. But I didn't do it alone. I had a guide who was very experienced, who had done it many times before, and he helped me be prepared for the hike. He said, you got to dress in layers because you'll get very hot and sweaty on the way up, but then you'll get very cold on the way down, so you can put layers back on. And he brought chains that we could connect to our shoes so that we could walk in the ice and the snow. And he said, you got to bring sunglasses because the glare off the sun on the snow and ice this time of year will blind you. And you've got to have a flashlight because it gets so dark early this time of year. Just in case, have a light so you can walk in the light. We have to be prepared for things like that. The season of Advent is a season of preparation. We're preparing for the coming of the Lord. Of course, at Christmas time, but also at the end of time when Jesus returns, we have to be ready and prepared. We have to be prepared every day for the Lord to come into our lives. And fortunately, we have a guide on this journey. That guide is the prophet Isaiah that we hear from almost every day during this season. He is the one that tells us how to be prepared. And today he says, "Come, let us climb the mountain of the Lord." Now, the mountain that he's talking about today is not up in the White Mountains. It's Mount Zion in Jerusalem. It's that mountain where the temple of the Lord was built. Now, if you've ever been to Jerusalem, you know that calling Mount Zion a mountain is rather charitable. It's not nearly as big as the White Mountains here in New Hampshire. It's really just almost like a little hill. It's a really small thing, but it was so important because that's where the worship of God took place. And Isaiah has this prophecy. He says there's going to come a time when that little hill is going to be bigger than all the other mountains of the world. It's going to become the tallest mountain, bigger than the White Mountains of New Hampshire, bigger than the Himalayas. It's going to become the tallest mountain. And for us, that's an image of how we have to treat the worship of God in our life. The worship of God has to be the most important thing in our life, the tallest mountain. Because in life, we are climbing mountains. Life is difficult sometimes. It's a challenge. It's a slog. And we're heading up there. But the question is, are we climbing the right mountain? Because very often we can put something else in our life and treat that as the highest mountain. We're trying to climb the mountain of our career. We're trying to climb the mountain of the possessions and the experiences we want. We can try to climb the mountain of pleasure or prestige. But Isaiah is challenging us, say, no, make sure you're climbing the right mountain. Climb the mountain of the Lord. Put the worship of God first and highest in your life. Make that your highest priority, your main aim in life, and then everything else will take care of itself. This is a hard mountain to climb, and we have to be prepared for it. The problem is we're not always very good as human beings at preparing for things. I don't know if anyone's been watching the World Cup this week, but it's taking place in the country of Qatar or Qatar in the Middle East. And they've known that they've been preparing to host this tournament for years and years and years, and yet somehow it seemed like it sprang them by surprise. And when fans got there this week to cheer on their teams, they found that a lot of the hotels that had been promised were never built. And people are being told, well, go out to the desert. We have these camps and these trailers, and you can stay there, but the hotels aren't there. And, this country is known for years it was going to host this tournament. Why weren't they ready? We can do the same thing in our life. I woke up this week and I realized, well, Christmas is 4 weeks away. I don't know how it came up so quickly, but I think, we had warm weather, just a summer-like weather just a couple of weeks ago. And I was on vacation. I was visiting my parents in Arizona. I had a bit of a cold. Now I'm over that now. And all of a sudden I wake up and Christmas is 4 weeks from today. And there's so much to get ready for. There's so much to do, to get presents and to decorate the house. And I'm sure we're all in that same boat. And those are the things that we care about. Those are the only things we get ready between now and Christmas, these next 4 weeks. Well, we're going to fill out these 4 weeks with a lot of stress. And at the end, we're going to have stressful hearts and we're going to have empty bank accounts getting ready for all those things. But what will it accomplish? Today, we're being challenged to prepare spiritually for Christmas, for the coming of the Lord these next 4 weeks. As St. Paul says, to clear out from our life the works of darkness, to get rid, he says, of drunkenness and promiscuity and rivalry and jealousy. Go take advantage of our Advent reconciliation service. Make a good confession. And then put on the armor of light. Be prepared to walk in the light. If we take these times to do that, to pray more, to read the scriptures, to be quiet, to quiet our hearts, to go out and have a quiet walk in the woods, to listen to some quiet music. And if we do those types of things, then we'll be more prepared for the Lord when he comes. We need to prepare our hearts during this time. And the Lord helps us to do that, to be prepared for his coming.